Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ben here. I'm back again today doing another video. And the subject of today's video is going to be a continuation of the Rise and Fall series. If you're unfamiliar with it, I have a playlist on my channel, so feel free to check that out and see some of the other videos I've been doing. But essentially, it's me analyzing a particular era for particular NBA teams in their history and looking at how a team came to rise and then why it ultimately plateaued and then started falling apart. And so today I am doing the Shaq-Wade Miami Heat era. It's one of the briefer ones. It's only actually 4 seasons, but it's a pretty interesting one, I think, and a fun one. And so I'm gonna get into it. So without further ado, here we go. So some things to note as I go through the seasons here. At the top of the screen on the left, you'll see some basic numbers and figures regarding their regular season and playoff success, their record, their seeding, how they finished in the playoffs, and their offense and defensive ratings throughout the regular season. On the bottom left, you'll see individual stats throughout the regular season as far as games played, minutes played, field goal attempts and percentage, same for three-pointers and free throws, then total rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, points. And then on the right, you'll see all those same stats, but for the playoffs. So if we get into this first season when the Miami Heat had just traded for Shaquille O'Neal, they had traded a package headlined by Lamar Odom and Caron Butler to the Lakers in exchange for Shaq. This first season, their main core, so to speak, was Dwayne Wade, Eddie Jones, Shaq, and Udonis Haslem. Shaq was very good this year for them. He shot 60% from the field. He averaged 23 and 10. And he actually was second place for MVP, and it's one of the closest MVP races of all time, as he led the Heat to a really good record of 59 and 23, where they were first in the East. And they were really solid on offense and defense. And I think that can be attributed to, you look up and down this roster, and you had guys like Shaq, who was an above-average defender at the time, declining from what his previous state had been, but still above average. Eddie Jones, a very long, good wing defender, who's actually pictured in the top right with Shaq. Then you have Dwayne Wade, who is, of course, as we all know, a very good defender. Haslem, above average. And that really comprised that foursome. A lot of really good two-way players right in that foursome. You look at other figures, Wade, pretty good efficiency from the field. Same with Udonis Haslem. And getting into the playoffs, they were really close versus the Detroit Pistons, who were at the time they were the 2 seed, and Miami. The problem with them, according to Shaq, was that he got injured late in that series, and so they weren't nearly as successful as they had been earlier in the playoffs, and he attributes him missing the final couple of games of that series. As you can see, he missed 2 games. He attributes that to why they lost, and of course that would be a big factor for any team, and it hindered Miami clearly. Going into the next year, they did actually finally get over the hump this year and win the title. Basically, the big difference on this team was that they had traded Eddie Jones in exchange for some role players in James Posey and Jason Williams, who each were some pretty big contributing players on this team, along with they brought in veterans Gary Payton, Antoine Walker, and Alonzo Mourning. So this team was really well set with some veterans who are really solid, and you have a similar good season from Shaq and Wade, and just good supporting turns from Udonis Haslem again, but maybe a more balanced team if you look outside of them, because you had like Jason Williams, Posey, Gary Payton, Walker, Alonzo, all playing a good amount of minutes and all contributing pretty well. And obviously Wade took over in the finals, as many of us know. He averaged, I think, like 35 points a game in the finals and played really well. And Shaq was kind of underwhelming in the playoffs, actually, but together they formed a pretty good duo and were able to get them over the hump. And people thought, hey, they won a title. Let's see what more they can do. The East is still wide open, and they're clearly better than the Pistons now. So let's see what can happen. The next season, sadly, they ran into a lot of injury problems. Wade missed 30 games. Shaq missed half the season, 42 games. They actually, by this point, had brought Eddie Jones back on free agency, but he had missed nearly 50 games. Starting point guard Jason Williams missed 20 games. Gary Payton, who was playing half of a game, close to 24 minutes a game, he missed 14 games. And yeah, they just ran into a lot of injury problems with major contributors. Shaq continued to age, and his play was still slowly declining. Beyond him, you look at the other contributing factors of different guys on the team. Everybody else had a pretty standard season for themselves. But again, not having Wade for 30 games and not having Shaq for half the season really hurt them badly. And as you can see, missing those two premier offensive guys, their offensive rating dropped quite a bit during the regular season. They actually still, even winning 44 games, were still the 4th seed, though, in a very weak Eastern Conference. And they lost in the playoffs to Chicago. And if you want to point to the main reasons, I think you'd say, Eddie Jones played terrible, a guy who they were playing a good amount of minutes during the regular season, just shot awful, 22% from the field. Besides that, Jason Williams shot awful, 25% from the field. Same with James Posey, just shot awful from the field, 38%. Wade tried, and he took a lot of shots, and same with Shaq, but it basically was these two guys versus a full team. And Chicago was pretty well balanced at this point between Ben Gordon, Luol Deng, a few other guys. Ben Wallace at this point was on that Chicago team. Kirk Heinrich. They were pretty well balanced and just, I think, healthier overall than Miami and had more chemistry because they hadn't had as many in and out injuries. That's a big factor for Miami that a lot of people would not even think about, is that with Wade missing substantial amounts of times. Same things with Williams, Eddie Jones, Shaq. We go up and down the line. Gary Payton. Having those guys miss significant chunks of time really messes up with the chemistry and flow of rotation, minutes, and just how this team plays. And I think that was a big detriment to this team. Then we arrive at 07 to 08, the end of the ride for this Miami team. You had them trading away Shaq mid-season. He had missed a lot of time already. But you had Wade miss a lot of substantial time as well. You had key guys like Alonzo Mourning, who I believe at this point had retired. Same thing with Gary Payton. He was gone and retired. James Posey had left in free agency. So you basically were missing 3 really good rotation pieces right there. Jason Williams had really fallen off. Also, this was his last year before he did his temporary retirement for a season and a half. And you basically had brought in Ricky Davis as the guy that was supposed to be the Band-Aid for everything, who was a very inefficient volume scorer. And then they traded Shaq for Shawn Marion, which to me, there wasn't really a huge purpose to it. It was more just that they wanted to shake things up and hope that randomly trading a big piece for another big piece would help the chemistry. Marion played fine, 14 points, 11 rebounds, but he himself was even starting to, you'd say that this season was probably the last of him in his actual prime. After this, he kind of became more of a supporting piece, but even this season, he started to gradually decline as well. Obviously, their offense really struggled with missing Shaq for big portions of the season. Same with Wade. And then you had guys like Ricky Davis and Jason Williams, who were essentially some of the best options on this team at certain times, and they were really inefficient players. So the offense really struggled. And with basically Udonis Haslem being a good defender and nobody else, Shawn Marion was good, but as you can see, he only played 16 games for this team, which is very little. So if I had to sum up this Heat era, it's kind of a very brief one when you really think about it. 4 seasons, and really only 2 healthy ones from the Wade-Shaq duo. The other 2 seasons, this one and the prior one, they both each missed substantial amounts of time. So we got very little of the actual Shaq-Wade healthy in their primes, but they were really good during those periods. And you look at why they were successful. Miami did a great job of surrounding their team with really good supporting pieces, especially if we look at the championship season. Up and down those top 8 guys, all really good contributors. And if we look at why they ended up failing later on, injuries. It really comes down to injuries, and sometimes that just is the unfortunate thing about a team, is that like you can't really do much about injuries besides asking your guys to take better care of their body, which for Shaq, it was at a point in his career where he really didn't care about that. So that was just going to be a problem overall for this team, was getting him to care enough. But there you have it, guys. Those are the main reasons why this team rose. They traded for Shaq, of course, and he was a great player. And then why they fell was really, to me, injuries. And a lot of their supporting cast was really old, so then when they were starting to gradually retire, this team struggled to fill in with equally good supporting pieces. There you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you check out the other videos in the series if you're curious about them, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.